Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder looking at another devblog for the Italians, which are coming out in update 1.85 in a ground forces form. This is the Breda 501, and I've been looking forward to this vehicle for a few days now since it was announced, alongside the Italian ground forces, and I've been doing a little bit of research into it, and to be honest, it just seems like a fun little truck, which is going to be a glass cannon with a big 90 on it. If you want a little bit of historical backing to this vehicle, where it was from, what was it going to be used as, or why it's not really a vehicle you really hear of when it comes to Italy. Well, this is technically a 1943 vehicle, and what the Italians realized, thanks to many trucks which house the 90mm, flatbed trucks, and also the Semavente 9053, the 90mm that they'd created, even though it wasn't as good as some of its competitors such as the 88, it was still the best that they had and a powerful gun. So they tried to mount them on different chassis. They tried to make it so it was much more maneuverable, so they could actually use it against other tanks, since their tanks were, let's say, struggling against some of the competitors, especially now with the Americans joining the war. So with all of this in North Africa, they went back to Italy and decided, you know what, we've got to create something with this 90mm. So they came up with the Breda 501. Now, unfortunately, even though the Breda 501 was built in a few prototype capacities, the armistice was obviously signed by Italy in 1943, and a lot of designs, including this Breda 501, were kind of put by the wayside and forgotten about. So even though this thing is technically a prototype vehicle, it was tested. We do have a lot of information about the 90mm that the Italians used, and also the information about the truck in general. Overall, I'm very glad to see it in game, and it'll be interesting to see how it kind of fits. So what we're going to do is talk about its impact in the game. We're also going to talk about, the key aspects which aren't really mentioned in the devblog itself. So the first one, before we get into anything, I do want to talk about a member of the Discord. So there's a lad called Covinci. Now, if you haven't met Covinci, he's an Italian guy. We have a bunch of Italians on the Discord. They all seem very happy that the ground forces are coming out. But the reason why it's always fun talking to Covinci, because he has a few dogs. And one of the dogs is called Breda, I think is how you say it, or Breda. And it's a little pug. And you can hear it yapping sometimes in the background. And he picks it up and he puts it next to the microphone. And you can hear it like that stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a lovely little story. And it's nice to put, a bit of life into videos like this. But anyway, let's get back to the Breda 501. So, the first thing to understand, this 90mm should be able to fire some kind of AP round with some HE filler, and also a heat round, which is pretty much the same as a lot of the Italian guns out there. What you'll find is something very similar to the Leoncello, where they'll have this AP round with a ton of HE filler, which doesn't have the best penetration, but if it penetrates, it's going to make whatever it hits go pop. And then they've got a heat shell, which doesn't have very high muzzle velocity, at least compared to the AP, but it has extra penetration, but it doesn't do as much damage, but it still should do quite a lot. This is why when the Italians were talked about, a few days ago, I mentioned the fact that when the French came into game, AP rounds were completely reinvigorated. They were completely changed. The dynamics of, or the gameplay dynamics that they were accustomed to had completely changed. They made them a hell of a lot better than they were before. Pretty much made them, what the old APCBC or APHE used to be. So with that said, I'm wondering if we're going to get something similar to the heat rounds, because the Breda 501 with its 90mm, I don't think it will really struggle with doing damage. But some of the smaller caliber guns might. I think the 90 will be okay. It's going to be interesting when the dev server rolls around, just to see, how well the 90 actually does when it actually comes to damaging stuff. A thing that I'm kind of sad about in this video that I'm showing, and also the pictures, there is no crew shown on this thing, and it would have been nice to see, how many crew they are saying should be on this. I mean, if you look generally at this, you've got a driver position, which would be in the front here. and then you have another position next to him, which could be a radio man. Then you could have like 2 loaders, a commander, a gunner, and also the guns at the back. So there's a lot of opportunities for like a 6-man crew on this thing, so taking it out might be kind of annoying. The problem that it has is a same problem that a lot of these Italian vehicles are going to have. They talked a lot about having armoured cars, or, stuff like it, open-topped tank destroyers, stuff like this for Italy, and that's all well and good, I'm very happy that we are getting to see this. But the Breda 501, first of all, it has a 6-wheel chassis, which includes 10 wheels in total, so you have 8 at the back, in sets of 2 and 2 at the front, which are obviously steering the thing. Because of this, you have a wide amount of surface area which is attached to the ground, and because of that, maybe you're not going to get as much purchase as you would like. Also, armored cars generally in War Thunder do not perform as fast as some of their, real-life counterparts, or at least a max speed, which is why when I look at this video, and the first thing it says is over 50 kilometers per hour max speed, I feel like you're never going to hit that. And there are 2 reasons for this. First of all, in War Thunder, I've never had an armoured car hit its top speed. Now, I've hardly ever had a vehicle that has hit its top speed. So I'm not interested in its top speed. I'm personally interested in how fast it can go from 0 to 20. And that is something that we're going to have to look at when the dev server rolls around. Also, the stability of the gun when it comes to slowing down, when it comes to stopping, when it comes to moving. Because if this gun is not stable while on those little movements, we're going to have to see a stationary vehicle here. This is not a gun that will be able to turn at 360 degrees. As you can see, it definitely has, a little bit of metal in front of it, such as this bit and this bit here. You can see it more prevalently here. So this isn't a gun which is going to have crazy good elevation against aircraft, but it should be okay. Gun depression, it should be pretty good. And when it comes to traverse, should be fine, but it does mean that you will have to be maneuverable on this front axle here. So that is going to be the key for this when it comes to repositioning, when it comes to actually getting kills. It's all well and good for a vehicle like this to get into a position, get a kill, but once you get that kill, because this thing only has 30 millimeters of armor, and that's 30 millimeters of armor at most, when it talks about here, there we go, 30 millimeters of frontal armor, you're gonna have to run. What that means is hopefully this thing has a good reverse gear. Like hit, fire the shot, get out of there, get back in, have some fun, work like that. Generally, when it comes to this machine, I personally think that that's going to be the way to play it. Basically set yourself up in a nice place. Obviously, this thing's going to have pretty good gun depression, so set yourself up looking over a hill so you don't expose the bottom of your vehicle. Shoot in, move back, keep doing that. Pretty much, Kursk, if you spawn on the northern side, it has that little hill, which is like a rolling hill. Just sit behind that, sit the gun level with the hill, and then fire over it. I think that those positions for the Breda are going to be perfect, right? That's exactly what you want to see. In open combat, though, you don't want a machine like this. What you want is something with a turret, something which will hopefully have a little bit more maneuverability, and also a few more options, such as a bit more armor, just in case you get flanked or something like that. So because of these unfortunate things, it's definitely going to be, a vehicle which is going to have to be defensive in playstyle and be a supportive vehicle, not an aggressive vehicle. I think a lot of people are going to look at this as if it's like a Puma, like the SDKFC 2344. It's not called the Puma, but the 2342 as well, and the 2343, where they are fast vehicles which are light and they're able to motor around the place, and get into crazy positions. But what you've got to understand is the Longbow 75 is very good, but it's also on a very, very light chassis. One of the things that the Breda 501 has is a petrol engine, and that petrol engine only gives out 142 horsepower. Now that is something to think about. 142 horsepower is not a lot, right? It is not something that's going to make you motor about like the SDKFCs. So with that said, that is something we have to take into account. Will they actually because it has this 142 horsepower little piddly petrol engine, plus this massive 90mm on it, and also this excess room on the back where the engine is being housed, and also the front, will it have the acceleration in order to do what in those other armoured cars you enjoy doing, which is basically flanking or setting up into positions early and getting key kills off at the start of the battle? My personal feeling is no, this machine won't be able to do it. I feel like it's going to be a machine which is a little bit too slow off the bat, so therefore you have to play defensively. What is the saving grace, though? Even though I've said all of those quite negative stuff, when it comes to its maneuverability, it's a rank 3, right? Rank 3, you're looking at stuff like maybe 3.0 to 4.0 or 3.0 to 4.7. And with that said, I mean, in some cases you have 5.7s, like with the Tigers and the Panthers. But for me, for this vehicle, you're looking into that 3.0 to 4.0 bracket, right? So there's a lot of machines there which are not exactly fast, especially on the Allied side, which don't have that long range of a gun, and are also not that high caliber. So generally you see, the 75 Shermans, 76 Shermans, maybe you'll see a Cromwell, maybe a Churchill, then you've got stuff like the Soviet T-34s. All of these should be manageable for this gun. And also, they are not all incredibly fast, apart from maybe the Cromwell going a certain direction, but they shouldn't be speeding around the place like specific German vehicles do. So I think you will have a chance with the Breda 501 to get into a position before you get, run at. But just remember, 30mm of armor, this is under the line for hull break. So this thing will get hull broken. That means artillery is coming in to ruin your day. It also means that because it's open-topped, guess what's always also going to ruin your day? Oh look, aircraft are coming in. It's going to be interesting to see with these machine guns on the back if they can point upwards, because you can actually look and see the machine guns are actually following the gun in the video. Or they're not really following the gun, but they're not looking, straight up, and they're not looking straight behind. So my guess is they do follow the gun to a certain point until they can't turn. But the anti-air defense is not very good in this thing. Obviously being open-topped is a big issue for that, and with only 30mm of armor on the sides and the front, can you imagine what's on the back? That engine deck is going to be such a ripe target for aircraft, and because of this, that's going to be really annoying. This thing pretty much lives or dies on how good that 90mm is, and if this 142 horsepower engine has the acceleration to get this thing up from 0 to 30 in a good speed. If those two things are ticked, this thing could be a great 3.3, 3.7, maybe even 4.0, depending on how good the gun is. But the one thing I'm worried about is the speed of this. I think it's not going to be as fast as portrayed in this vehicle. In this video, I think it's going to be a lot lower. And also, remember what dominates this BR, 3.7 to 4.7. Oh baby, the jumbo's coming. And your heat, well, let's just say it may struggle a little bit against that wonderful jumbo. I really hope this thing does well, because it looks like a machine I would really, really enjoy. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.